Thanksgiving podcast. I'm your host, Isaac Lopez. Welcome to the show as we get you ready for your weekly current events conversations. In today's show, in the first segment, we are going to be asking, are conversations dead in America? A few rules of engagement on those. And then in our second segment, we are going to be looking at social justice warriors and where their conclusion is and leads to. All of that and more on today's show. So, well, it's great to be back with you guys. Sorry for the odd posting times. A word on that a little later in the show. But like you, the last week and a half have been crazy. And actually, I was with my wife this last weekend on our first anniversary trip. And for that time, I really tried to remain off social media. It was just a great time to relax and reboot after a very crazy year. And I tried to stay off of social media, right? I just put the phone away, only checked it every now and then. But in the times I did check it, I saw that the world was going to hell in a handbasket, or at least that's what people thought. That's what the reactions from all of my Facebook friends seemed to really be going. It was full of, this last week was full of people being accused of being racist, a lot of people virtue signaling, a lot of people coming out and decrying Black Lives Matter, a lot of people coming out and throwing each other under the bus. It was messy. It's been messy on social media recently. And, you know, the questions raised in my mind over the last year and over the last half of a year for doing this podcast are conversations worth having over social media. Now, I've asked this question before in a longer episode way back when, but I wanted to take a look at it now, as it just seems more important than ever that we get into current events conversations and take responsibility for our actions and actually take responsibility for those conversations. And if we do not deny that the Holy Spirit can work through Facebook, just as in-person conversations, then why should we not approach people on Facebook and try to have conversations? Okay, so I don't want to even delve into really the issues at hand. We might kind of on the periphery, but with this segment, I just want to look at what are a few rules of engagement for social media conversations, and something to just keep in the back of your head when discussing with people on a hot topic issue like Black Lives Matter, like racial injustice, and or the theory of racial injustice. And this is something that I definitely want to approach, because I've seen multiple people. I've seen a lot of people try it in different ways. I think that there's a good way to do it. And also to realize, just like in everyday conversation, people interact differently. Some people can come across as more abrasive. Other people can come across as more empathetic and more caring. What kind of person are you? You need to figure out what kind of person you are, and then figure out your strengths and use those strengths in conversations on social media, just like you would in person. Why would you want to be someone else than who you are on Facebook? And I know that sounds super cliche, but it's really true. The more honest you are with who you are in person on social media, as best as you can be. I know that there are limits to social media. That's another disclaimer before we really get into this, is to just realize that social media has limits, and you need to be able to know that you can't see the other person's face or reaction. So what you're getting, sometimes you can read in a completely different tone. So on that front, when you're in a common war back and forth, remember that sometimes they sound a lot more harsh. They sound harsher than they actually seem to be. Okay, than they actually are. And you know that person. A lot of us know our Facebook friends. You know, we'll probably have a few that we haven't really met, and it's just kind of like in circles. And you just accept a friend request, or you shoot off a friend request because you're interested to see what that person has to say on political issues like this one. And just realize that when you're conversing with someone, normally things can get heated, just like they very much can do online. But just realize that sometimes you're getting a much more um, uh, there's not a lot of nuance in what they're saying, because they've got to keep what they're trying to say very, very tight, and just try to keep it as straightforward as possible without they want to be as direct as they can be on Facebook, on Instagram, whatever the platform may be. So realizing that that is probably what is going on, assume the best, don't expect the worst. Okay, that's my first rule of engagement on social media. Assume the best of the person that you're discussing with. Assume the best that they aren't actually sounding as hurtful as you may be interpreting their words. Okay, just assume the best. And also, this goes for people that may be posting somewhat abrasive statuses on Twitter or Facebook. Realize that that person probably is not racist. realize that realize that sometimes that's a way of them communicating on Facebook, and maybe that's not the way that you think ought to be the way of communication on Facebook should be, but just realize that maybe that's what they're trying to do with that. And then just be aware. So the second one is be firm with what you believe in. Okay. That being said, when you're in a conversation, you got to be bold. Okay. There's definitely something on Facebook when you're having a give and take and you're conversing, you can have a slip up, right? But in a comment section, if you have a slip up, it's recorded right there, and people jump on that, right? Because it's written down. Don't be afraid to get things wrong. So be bold. Be bold. Don't necessarily be brash. There's a difference between being brash and being bold. I think being bold is bravery with wisdom, or something to that effect. I need to think more about that. But be bold in comment sections and in conversations. Don't be brash, and don't be fearful. Also, show interest in that person. This is my third and final rule. I want to keep it short and sweet. Show interest in the person that you're discussing with. Okay. Whether you see them on Facebook posting a picture of their kids or posting a picture of what they're doing that day, like it, comment on it. Private message them, ask them how you can pray for them. Show them that you're not just in it to win the argument. Show that you're in it to win their soul, or to win or to continue to challenge them in their faith, right? Sometimes you may, like when I said win their soul, maybe they aren't a believer, okay? And realize that that might be an opportunity for you to reach out, and don't just limit it to that comment section, because there are limitations to social media. And realize, okay, I actually need to take the time outside, just like you would do in a coffee shop over a couple cups of coffee. Realize that in a conversation, you don't want to just cold start it, right? You don't want to just sit down and say, hey, so I saw you post about this, and this is why I think, this is where I think you're wrong. Instead, ask them how their day's going. All right. Or just show interest on other areas of Facebook, so that way when you do get in a discussion, there's a bit more context, right? So always never expect the worst in someone. Be bold and show that you care. Be courteous. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. So normally there's an advertisement here, and if you're interested in putting in an advertisement for the show, sponsoring the show, contact me, reach out for me. Just such a big thanks to Friedel Financial Coaching for our first official sponsorship of the podcast that ended at the end of May. I can't believe we've already passed May, but a word on just kind of where this show is going for season 1. As you have probably seen in a lot of the titles, there's TLG 124. That's going to be the beginning of this episode, and that means season 1, episode 24. And I really can't believe we've already been doing this for 24 episodes. But the reason I put a season in there is that I knew I would need a pausing point at some point to just have something to wrap things up with. So the end of season 1 is going to be in the middle of June. We will resume at the beginning of July. Okay. So we got through the first half of the year. Okay. And then I'll just need a couple weeks off to honestly take a break, but also to just evaluate how best to continue building the show and how best to give more content and put more content out there for you guys, for the listeners to the show. And so we'll resume in July after next week, after a couple week break, and then we'll go until the middle of December. Okay, and that will be the 2 seasons of 2020, and look forward to being back with you guys then. But before the break, I do want to say that I want to get out as much content as possible. So we are going to 3 shows next week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and potentially a show on Saturday. It got to work out, but we're going back to shorter form episodes, and they're going to be published Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right around 9 o'clock, and just that will most likely be the form for season 2, but I just want to get as much content out there. So for the 2-week duration that I'm off from podcasting, not necessarily from the Life Giving, there'll be more content rolling out on the new site in the coming weeks. But I want to have more content out there for you guys to listen to, but also to just stay apace with current events, because so much is happening right now, and it's always happening. And this will allow me to be able to just have a bit more focused shows and not go on for half an hour. So all that to say, thank you so much for my loyal listeners, and hopefully we can get more content out there for you guys very soon. Thank you very much. So I already feel that this episode's longer than I want it to go, just because I want to keep it short and sweet. But for the second segment, I just want to look at what social justice warriors have been pushing a lot on Facebook, and just there's a lot to unpack from them, and there's a lot of nuance that I want to get into in later episodes. On the Monday episode, we'll probably get into that more. But as things have unfolded this week, we have seen a lot of moves that people have made. And I want to try to understand those moves by either their paradigm or where they're working toward. Okay, that often is, excuse me, still early in the morning. I've got that, just that dry throat. Hopefully that'll work out, and hopefully it's not a pain to listen to. What happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis is just terrible. And my heart goes out and my prayers go out to his family, and to those who are hurting from that. And I think that there's a lot of hurt in this country, and I think that there is injustice that is happening day to day on this country. I do not think that the United States of America is perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, that being said, we need to be able to look at what's going on in the world around us and be able to say, actually, no, this is wrong. That's a lie. That's not true. And if you do that, you need to be able to be bold with it and say what you actually need to say on it. Okay. Lil Wayne actually had this comment, and I think it really sums up a lot of what what you may be struggling with today in your news feed or just in life in general, in this really, really trepidous time. What we need to do, we need to learn about it more, he said. If we want to scream about something, know what we're screaming about. You want to protest about something, know what we're protesting about. So that comes from an article and an interview, and he was kind of bashing on a lot of just the virtue signaling, I think, that's going on around. And I think that's really good, because a lot of people, I think that they know what's going on, but they might not actually have done research. They might just be, especially for the Blackout Tuesday that happened on social media 3 days ago. What did that mean? And what does Black Lives Matter, the movement, what does that mean? And so I just want to think through a few of their either premises or their conclusions. And so that way you are better armed in conversations to just say, hey, just raise questions. These are the problems that I have with this movement. Help me work through them. And this could be a Black Lives Matter supporter you're talking with, or just a family member who doesn't really know what's going on and sympathizes with those who are going through what a lot of people are going through in this country. So one of the Black Lives Matter premises that I've seen pushed on Facebook is defund the police. defund the police. So that's in chants going on. That was in one of the chants that was going on downtown Moscow, in where there is a Black Lives Matter movement for 6 hours, which is impressive. They really truly have the guts to stand up for what they believe in, and hats off to them. But just think about that. What the people want to defund the police. Just think about what that would be like. Think about, we're already seeing police, the National Guard, being called into play, and they're standing down because there was a lot of confusion before President Trump finally stood up and said, hey, rioters and looters will not be tolerated. That's breaking the law. And for 24 to 48 hours, we saw lawlessness reigning through the land, and that's because the police weren't doing their jobs or didn't know what to do. In some places, their mayors told them stand down. So just think about what kind of world would we live in if people that riot and loot can do what they want without punishment. So just think about that. Raise that question. And then just what Black Lives Matter movement is. One of their goals is to end racism, but one of their assumptions is racist. It is racist to its very core to think that, in what we discussed a couple weeks ago about how the NFL was trying to incentivize, at some point, will probably incentivize franchises to hire minorities as head coaches, that they would actually get draft stock if they hired minorities. Now, tell me how that isn't racist. Tell me how that isn't valuing someone else more than another person based on the color of their skin. And I think that's what that's what bothers me so much about Black Lives Matter movement, is the fact that a lot of people are assuming that white people have this inherent white privilege that makes them superior or allows them to lead a superior lifestyle to Black lives. So how is that not racist? Like, when you're looking to even the score, because there is an assumption that one color has it better than the other color in this country. Tell me how that isn't racist. Just ask questions like that to people in your conversations today, and understand the fundamental different paradigm that they may be working with. Okay, they believe that institutions such as the police are racist through and through, and that the way that you fix it is by more rules and regulations into a belief. Okay, so I don't want to speak out of turn. So maybe they are trying to do both, and maybe they're trying to. I think actually, former President Barack Obama said that. We're trying to put pressure on our politicians but also changing the hearts of the people. But is it effective? Is it effective? The rhetoric that they are using to try to change the hearts of the people, is it effective? Ask that question. So ask questions. Do you really want to defund the police? Ask what rings weird about this movement. Why does it feel inherently racist? And even if it's about racism, where are we going with this? Is the end inherently racist, just in a different way, if they get what they want? And finally, what's their paradigm? Where are they moving to? Where they want to go with this? And what kind of rules and regulations are they instilling? And are they going for heart change or head change? Ask those questions. So, and finally ask, is the change that they are seeking effective? And also, is this really about Black lives? Just a few things to mull over today. So I hope you guys have a great weekend and a great Friday, and look forward to speaking with you on Monday. Remember that the life that you have been given and the life that you have received includes every area of life. Why should current events be the exception? God bless.